Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Hey guys, Mike with Coffee&theBull. Just want to say thank y'all for taking your time today and giving us a listen. Today we're going to be talking about what you have in your circle. It's going to reference the circle of friends that you've got around you. These are the guys and gals that you call when things are rough. Guys and gals that you call when things are going good and you're just bullshitting. But also the moment when you're like, hey man, I'm scared, or hey, I've got this going on, or and I don't know what to do. These are also those people. And we kind of had a conversation, referencing friends. A lot of it's going to be friends. Some people it's going to be spouses, and in some categories, the spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, fiance or whatever, they can come into it. But these are for lack of a better term, your ride or die people. These are the guys that when they shouldn't be making fun of you, they're not going to, but the moment they can make fun of you, they're going to let it rip.
Right.
They're going to send the jokes. They're going to get you back laughing. They're going to be the ones where, hey man, come get in the car. We're going to go get something to eat. And we had the conversation where it's you look at your friends kind of like tools. And I'm not saying your friends are tools. Y'all don't. I'm not going friend bashing. Your friends may be tools, or mine may be. But it's. Every friend has a purpose, and what I mean by that is, if you look at your circle, like I've got it with mine. I've got guys that I absolutely love to death.
Right.
But I've got certain ones that I know that, hey, if I've got something very, very serious going on, those are the ones I'm calling at that moment. Now I might reach out to the other ones by the end of it.
Yeah.
But when things are the roughest, I've got a very, very, very close circle of these are the guys I'm going to call. I'll get to the other ones later, but right now these guys need to know what's going on with me,
right?
And how to step in, and if it's to make phone calls to someone else or whatever, they're the guys that handle business. And you got other friends who, I'm not downplaying them, but they're Friday night friends.
Yeah.
They're, hey, let's go have a good time, get your mind off stuff, and that serves a purpose. Obviously you don't, not all the time can you be like, hey man, you okay? You got a moment? What you going through and everything. Sometimes you need the guys just going to cut loose, and just relax. Hey, throw some steaks on the grill. Have a couple beers or whatever it is. Whatever, a good time feels like to you. And you got to have time, have people like that, and then you got some people who, they're more acquaintances, and you sit there and you talk to them, and they'll call and check on you, call and check on them or whatever, but there's no super substantial substance right there,
Right.
But it could be, it's as things are always fluid, things are always changing. I've noticed over life my circle of people has changed. A lot of people that I had in my life 10 years ago aren't in the spot where they're who I go to now for guidance, So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today.
I think that circle of friends, it genuinely changes as your needs in life change.
Right.
Because the guys I needed at 19, 20 years old aren't the guys that I need today.
Right.
And like Mike was saying, it's for lack of a better expression, it's a toolbox effect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not always going to bust out the hammer when I need a flathead screwdriver. And that's
the minus one, right?
The minus one.
You got the plus and the minus.
The plus and the minus, that's right. So it's trying to identify it, and there he goes again with that damn coffee pot.
One day we're getting a new one.
One day. Not today, but one day. Well, just enjoy the sizzle in the background. It's like we're having a barbecue at a hibachi grill. So with the circle of friends, we have that circle that's close, that when you're in the middle of a heavy moment, there's almost like a sense of they know something's up, and they're going to reach out, and they're going to try to make that contact, and they're, to check on you. But I also know that we have friends that they know the level of closeness that we all have. And so during certain situations, instead of calling you directly, they'll reach out to hey, you're probably there.
Go around the loop.
Right, like you're probably right next to him. What's with the information? What's going on? Where's he at? And I know in other aspects of it, like our work colleagues would touch base with me first if there was ever an incident with you, and be like, hey, how's he doing? How's everything going? Or I was gonna call him, and that's they get that response. Like with my incident, it was they didn't reach out to me directly. They went to the next best thing, and that person was like, hey, don't call right now.
Right.
Just send a text message, let him process. He'll deal with it when he gets to you. Whereas those immediate people, it was an immediate like, hey, I'm good. I'm letting you know because I know you're going to worry about me if I don't.
Right.
But I think that you need, I need a very close circle, a little bit broader circle, and then everybody else is for lack of better terms, a cannon fodder. They're work related friends or
Cannon fodder. That's what you're going with?
What? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're important, but they're not like like the person at work who, when you see him, you're like, hey, how's it going, man? How's the wife and kids? See
You
you.
just keep walking. You never stop walking the entire
Right.
time you're having. Yeah.
Right. Because
Okay, I got you.
Right.
I got you.
it's you're socially
Well,
polite.
I for one wouldn't call any of my friends cannon fodder, but that's just me. I'm also probably a better friend. So in the terms of being effective with what we're trying to do, like we kind of talked about, because this was one of the discussions we had, where some people they don't have that circle of people around them,
Right.
And so it immediately becomes you want to try to offer them some advice. Hey, this is who you need to look for. This is what you need to be looking for in this
Right.
person or that person. This is who you go up to, and kind of what we come up to with the conclusion is we can't really do that. We
Right.
can't say, hey, this is if you see this guy, he's wearing Wranglers and work boots, and he's going to be doing this and this on this day. I can't tell
Right.
you who to go up to. I
Right.
can't tell you who to talk to. But what we can do, and this is kind of the theme of honestly every episode up to this point, is just simply telling everybody what we've been through.
Right.
Like what I noticed worked for me, and how I look at who I want to invite into my circle.
Right. Right.
And it's not sending out check yes or no letters or anything like that.
Yeah.
It just happens. And
The big thing, the reason we're doing it this way is we've all been that guy that's watching the motivational video or listening to the radio where the guy jumps out there and he's like, you got to suck it the fuck up and you got to move forward. Or the other guy that, it's okay and you're going to be all right and you're going to be. Sometimes that shit doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
That when I hear those go get them positive attitude, I just want to be like, how the would you know what's going to work for me?
Well, I found what happened with me when I first started law enforcement. And honestly, my entire circle of friends changed when I entered this world.
Right.
And I was full of piss and vinegar, for lack of a better term. Like I was sitting there, my dispatchers absolutely hated my guts.
Right.
The moment I keyed up on the radio, you could hear their eyes rolling over the radio, if that's possible.
Right.
Just here he goes again, and all the senior officers, they hated it, because they just want a nice quiet night. Instead, I'm over there kicking every hornet's nest I could possibly find. God help you if you had a warrant from 1984.
Right. For jaywalking.
You were going to jail, son.
To jail.
Handcuffs for everybody. And it was one of them things where, if I could go back and just grab me around the throat, I would. But hey, calm down. But it, obviously, life doesn't work that way. We learn as we go. And I remember I just got out of training, and I'm on a brand new shift. I think it's a second shift on this, or second day working on this shift, and I'm calling out one traffic stop after the other, and we didn't have any calls. Like, it was one of the nights where we didn't have a bunch of calls for service coming in, so I'm like, say no more. The taxpayers are paying me to do a job, and by God, me and this badge and this can-do attitude are going to do this job. And man, if you had bad smelling exhaust as you passed me, I was finding no reason to pull you over. Like, I'm going to find the cartel dealer,
right,
come hell or high water. And I didn't. Just a little spoiler alert. I was not, I was not a narco detective or anything like that.
Right.
Like I wasn't changing the world. But I had one of my friends show up. Or I call him Coop, and I remember he just showed up on one of my traffic stops, and I didn't know what I was doing or anything, and he was almost as green as he had been there a couple months more than I had, and he just showed up on the next one. We started doing traffic stops together, and it was like two dummies sharing a bouncy ball.
Right.
Was all it was. Like just having. We didn't care that dispatchers were mad. We didn't care. We were doing our. Don't get me wrong. We wasn't causing more work for other people. We were everything we started up. We would finish up. But we had a blast doing it. And what I noticed when we'd go meet up with the other guys for breakfast in the morning, while we're all there busting each other's balls, what I noticed about Coop was he wasn't talking about people behind their back.
Right.
And like the more I talked to him, and we did not start off with hey man, like super in-depth conversations. It was literally just bullshitting. Just learning. Hey man, where are you from? What brought you to over here? Why'd you get into this career? And all this other stuff, and learn about him, learn about his home life, learn where he come from, and him asking me the same questions, and realizing, hey, we despite coming from two completely different backgrounds, two completely different areas of the world, we really linked up. It was like a mold going on, and that transitioned into we stayed working together for years, even up to a specialized division where we were doing the door kicking and
Right.
going after high risk warrants and stuff like that, and I noticed that he had an obligation to me and I had an obligation to him. Like it was something where no matter when he would hear that I was going through something like what it was, a stressful call or whatever, he didn't care what he was doing. He might have been tired, he might have been down reports or whatever. He was coming. And he was going to get there, and he was going to try to find a way to help out. And I realized, hey, that's the type of guy that I want. I don't want somebody who's going to be gossipy, talk about me behind my back. I didn't want somebody who is going to be talking about other people. But also, whenever he got there, he wasn't just going to add to the problem. He was going to be effective. He was going to help out, and he was going to find a way to be useful.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's somebody I want. And that transitioned into the hey, where you're from and everything conversations to now it's more of a, hey man, what you got going on? How's so and so? How what's your thoughts on this or that with your new job? What you got going on and everything. And there's an investment there, and
Right.
and we've reached a spot where life has happened. He's going to work for another agency. I'm at a different one, and so we don't talk as much as we used to. It used to be every day, several times a day, and what I noticed is as he kind of moved out just a little bit, and he's still very, very much in a very high spot in my life. Other people moved in too,
Right.
And that brought up some of you be guests on the show, and stuff like that. So y'all get a chance to meet them. But what I found was I couldn't say, hey, I like Coop. I want to get 4 more Coops.
Right.
Because God broke the mold when he made him. He's not like anybody I've ever met before. And honestly, I don't know that I would want another Coop, because he's kind of annoying. He's kind of,
He is.
And
He
if he
is.
listens to this, he'll know. He'll be like, yeah, okay.
Let's be honest. Coop's not listening.
He's not listening.
He's subscribed,
It'll
but
help
he's
his
not
life.
listening.
He's not listening.
You're
So,
right.
it's one of the things where, as much as I would love to have more of him,
Right.
other people come into life and they fill a role that he can't fill, or
Right.
not that he can't fill, but they're more effective at it, right?
Yeah.
They offer maybe a little different type of guidance or whatever. And like I've got a mentor of mine. His name's Scott. He's going to wind up coming on the show, and I can go years without talking to Scott. And like I called him the other day. Hey man, this is what I got going on. And he stopped what he's doing. Or I sent him a message, let him know, hey, look, this is what I got going on. He stopped what he was doing, called me, hey, where are you at mentally? What do you got going on? This is what happened to me, and immediately, talking from experience. And my dad has this phrase that I couldn't stand growing up, but it becomes more valuable to me over time.
Right.
Is someone who's got experience doing something is never at the mercy of somebody with a theory. You could talk about, hey, this is, I think you should handle it this way. No, when you've been through it, it's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
Right. And so, he's one of those guys. And Coop can't be a Scott. Also, Scott can't be a Coop.
Correct.
And so it's like everybody's got their different roles. And when you run out of those, then you get stuck with a guy like yourself, where I'm just like, how did I end up with a guy with no teeth? So that's where we're at. But
Scrape the bottom of the broken mold when they made me.
Right. So that's my thought on it is you can't go looking or trying to find a specific person. It's one of the things where you have to start having a conversation with people because nobody, if you don't talk to anybody, and coming from, like in high school, I was a very shy guy. I didn't like talking to people. We moved around so much that we were constantly having to make new friends, and then we'd leave and so it was like, why am I doing this?
Right.
And so I didn't like talking to people. I didn't like get to know people anymore. And if you keep that introverted mindset, as much as some people are just natural introverts, if you're not going to reach out, people's not going to reach back. Unfortunately, it's one of the things. You have to break that cycle.
Yeah. You
have to break that mindset, and you've got to at least, at a minimum, start with a conversation, and then you can start judging their character.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm looking for with who I'm trying to get around me. Do you want to add something to that?
Yeah. So like, I 100% agree with you with Coop. I got lucky when we started at that agency because my first two real supervisors were you and Coop.
Yeah.
And so having the two of you, I call it the ugly truth, and that's the nicest way to put it, is whenever I was doing something, for lack of other terms, stupid, because I didn't know any better, because piss and vinegar, and I didn't. When you first become a cop, you don't know every law. You don't know what you necessarily can and can't get away with doing as far as probable cause and reasonable suspicion and everything else. And so your brain runs wild with okay, I know that they're doing drugs, or I know they're selling drugs in this house, and I really want to get in here, but you don't have a legal reason to get in there. And that's where you and Coop would step in, and, it was the same general 5 questions. What do you got? What's your plan? What are you thinking? What have you done already? What are you going to do? And usually the two of you, after like question 2, would be like, you're stupid. We're not doing that. Or, look, you're going to lose some, you're going to win some. This is going to be a loser.
Right.
And so for me, you and Coop were always the guys that I would call and be like, hey, this is what I got. This is where I want to go with it. And this is why I want to go that way. And even now, 5-6 years in law enforcement, and I still can call you or Coop and be like, this is kind of where I'm at. Because I know that the two of you have enough combined experience with the avenues that I tend to go down as a police officer, that you're great in a professional sense. But at the same time, when it comes to like my life decisions or things like that, we have another friend named Chuck. Mm-hmm. And Chuck was never a guy that I would call necessarily for professional work. But if I was doing something in my personal life, he has a phenomenal older mentor mentality. He's much like my Scott. But he does it in a way that doesn't make me feel stupid when I'm like, hey, I'm going to go buy a Ferrari. And, he doesn't go, well, that's stupid. You can't afford that. He lays it out in a way that makes it more understandable to me. But also, he's the first one to text me or call me and say, what's going on with Mike?
Right.
Or, vice versa. So, in my small circle, I've got a really good friend named David. Since I was 10, this guy has always prayed for me. His whole family's prayed for me. And anybody that knows me from 10 years old till 19 years old, I was a piece of shit. Like, I was a bad kid. I got in trouble all the time, got brought home in cop cars all the time. I was not a good kid. And somehow, over 30 years, yeah, that's about right. David's family has never stopped praying for me and being supportive of me. They've always been very nice to me, even when they shouldn't have been. But moving into my life, I have old Marine Corps friends who I was that mentor for.
Mm-hmm.
And progressing through it, I found that I have a very small circle that, like David, I love him to death, but he's not in my small circle. I'm not calling him when the world's coming to an end for me. But if I'm on like a lighter note, I might reach out to him. He's in that outer circle. I've always disagreed with that concept that, you got to keep your circle small. Well, who the hell says you only get one circle?
Right.
Each friend can be in a different form of that circle. It all depends on what your mission is, what you need to achieve as far as your mental health and what you're going through. Like we said earlier, I'm not calling my buddy who's always borrowing cash from me when I'm about to make a financial decision. I'm not calling him to
Probably not the best person for advice.
right. I don't call the dentist when I want to work on my car.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't call the
You
dentist
don't call
often.
it dentist at all.
Right. So it's being selective isn't always necessarily what you're going through at that moment.
Right.
You may make an acquaintance today and not realize that 5 years later, that might be the greatest source of your struggle that you're currently or going to go through or whatever. You may not realize why they're that connection for you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, you look at them the day you meet them and you're like, well, this dude looks like a Mexican. I don't want to be hanging out with that guy or whatever. And then 6 years later, that's the guy you're calling every day.
Right.
You're welcome. I always answer for you.
So, let's change gears for a minute and get away from, hey, these are the people we have around us. Because we're lucky in the sense that we've got, a handful of guys, and we share several of these guys for what they bring to the table and how they help us out. Because all of us have been around different critical incidents together, and there's a bonding motion that takes place.
Trauma bonding, I think they call it.
So for the guys who don't have that, the guy who's going to work in the refineries right now, who's turning wrenches all day long, working on boilers or piping or whatever, if they're probably not going to have the trauma bonding experience,
right?
And so for that person, how do you express the importance of getting guys like that, or how the beginning steps of that? How do you is there a refining process or a filtering process that you've got as things go on? And what I mean by that is, like, I've got as I start talking to people, because I do a little bit of sit back and seeing how people respond to things. If I notice that, hey, I watch this guy go up and talk to guy number B or guy A and guy B. If guy A goes up to guy B, tells him and he's talking about whatever, and the moment guy A leaves, guy B goes to guy C and starts running his mouth about what guy A said. That's not the type of guy that I want.
Right.
That's not what I want going on in my life. And so for me, that's hey, I'll talk to this guy like I'm going to be cordial with everybody, or almost everybody, but it's not somebody I want in my deep inner circle. And obviously you can't right off the bat tell, but there's a series of things that go on. And then if for me, if I see that like if I'm going to work and somebody's never at work because they stubbed their toe today, so they're calling into work.
Right.
I don't necessarily. Again, I'm not dismissive of them, but they're not who I try to spend much of my time with because they're not reliable. You see where I'm going at?
Yeah.
So for you, do you have a specific process, or is it love at first sight for you, for lack of a better term?
I wouldn't say. I think I agree with you on the. I like to see how a conversation goes between me and that person, and because anybody who knows me knows that I'm going to say exactly what my brain
Mm-hmm.
thinks. It's not always going to be appropriate, professional, or right on the money. You never have to guess what I think of you. But again, I for my daughter's favorite term, I like couth occasionally. Um, but no, I'm right there with you. If you're the guy that's always calling up and talking about, oh, did you hear about so and so? Did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? I gauge it based off of, would you have this same conversation with me in front of them?
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that you and I get along so well, is there is nothing that we have ever said about a single other person that I know
And not
for
say
a fact.
directly to their face.
Yeah, say it to their face. Not to throw names out, but there, like, when you looked at that guy and was like, professionally, I've got your back 110%.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, we will never be
Right.
friends.
Sometimes you have to be blunt.
Right,
You know,
right.
And squash whatever expectations there. And what I mean by that is, you can't make somebody, and I say this a lot at work. You know, when people call the sheriff's office or police departments for some of the weirdest things
Yes,
ever,
yes.
and I don't blame them for it. Let me stress that. Like, I get that. You know, sometimes you don't know what to do, and you don't necessarily need a guy rushing in with a gun. You might need a set of ears,
And that's all you need, yeah.
and somebody who can look at things from a different perspective. And I know that one of the things that I learned early on in my career is, as I'm talking to somebody and they're upset with whether it be their neighbor or a boyfriend or girlfriend or family or friend or prior friends or whatever, and they're just upset because of how this person talked to them or whatever. And don't get me wrong, the person could have talked to him in a very, very demeaning, racist, hateful, whatever
right.
way. My response to him is, I can't make somebody be a good person.
Right.
You know, and so what I do is, when I realize, hey, I can't make you be a good person. I can't, you know, some people you can grab them by the arm and kind of adjust their
Right.
how they walk, how they talk, and stuff like that. But if you're if you're out of that category so much that you're just, you know, you're uncorrectable, for lack of a better term,
Right.
then I'll let you know right off the bat, hey, we're not going to, you know, and I'm not going to go out of my way and be like, hey, man, you suck, you know. But if you come up to me, hey, man, I noticed you're not talking to me or whatever, that's time for the conversation.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, it's built from a stance of giving people opportunities to show their true colors. And we've really, you know, you've got to give people a chance to do that.
Right.
You know, because if you go up and you're like, nah, I don't like that guy. He's listening to country music. You know, it's the new country music, which isn't real country music.
Right.
So I'm not going to go that. I'm more of a rap guy or whatever. You know, then you miss an opportunity there. You know.
Right.
You know, and so it's one of those things where we filter initial appearances rather than giving somebody a shot.
Right.
And that person that you're saying, hey, I can't do anything with you, you know, or I don't want to be around you because, hey, you like Harleys and I like, you know, Hondas or whatever, then at that point, you might be squashing one of your best friends, you know,
Right.
later on in life. You don't know what's going on.
Or potential
So-
to be somebody to help
right.
you
So
out.
if we could, you know, and it's a world peace type mentality. Don't get me wrong. I know it sounds dumb. I know it sounds stupid. But it's if you could have that, just start having a conversation. Like that is the thing we're trying to grasp so many times.
Right,
Is
right.
just have a conversation. You know,
We're not saying have a conversation where you have the in-depth, let me tell you all my
Right,
problems.
right.
You know, and on initial meeting. Now, if you've got a friend of like 10, 15 years and you're struggling, have a conversation with
Right.
them on that magnitude. But when you're meeting new people, that's the time that you have the light conversation where you can insert light jokes and light comments and just kind of see where it falls.
Mm-hmm.
Because for example, your good friend Luke, I know that based off of the information I've gotten from you in regard to Mr. Luke, that he and I are on two different paths of life. Neither one of us is a better person or anything in that regard. He's probably a better person, I'll be honest. But there's nothing saying that he and I wouldn't get along. And but we're two completely different people.
Right.
But until we have that conversation where we meet, introduce, and talk and everything else, you know, there's no telling. And I use this a lot when I'm telling other people about kind of our friendship, is that like you go to church. If you're not working, you don't miss it.
Right.
And you know, you're very heavy in your faith, and I am not. I mean, I believe, and that's a conversation for a whole another time, but I'm not going to church. I don't. It's from my childhood. I just don't believe in going to church. It is what it is. But Mike and I, unless we've had the conversation about something related to religion, you don't push that on me.
Right.
And that's a respect thing that you have for me in the sense that when I'm ready to have that conversation, you know I'm going to come to you and have that conversation. And at the same time, you can sit down with your friend Luke and have in-depth Bible verses and you know what was discussed at church that day or whatever, whereas Luke and I can't have that.
Well, so one thing I like is, and going to the importance of friends like, you know, getting to a spot where you have friends like Luke is. I knew Luke for, you know, I've known Luke for a couple years now, and it started off with just, hey man, I'm Mike. You know, he introduced himself. I introduced myself. We went our separate ways. He took, and he was actually in charge. He's in charge of our Sunday school class, and he was going through, you know, doing your basic Sunday school director or Sunday school teacher thing, and he had one moment where he opened up and gave true Luke type energy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And it was talking, and I'm going to spoil it. He may be mad at me. He'll get over it. He opened up about he's a doctor and he's fascinated with leprosy, you know, and so he starts, you know, going over and we were talking about a story in the Bible that where lepers are present, and so
right.
he's just seeing excitement, and I remember watching him. I'm like, okay, if he's willing to open up to these people that and not, you know, some big boohoo thing, but just excitement, man, and hey, come, you know, whether they like it or not, this is what he likes, you know, and this is what he, you know, he brought books and all kinds of stuff where I'm like, what in the world? But he showed he had the ability or the willingness to be authentic,
right?
And that's what I was looking for at that time. And
to talk about something that really
talk about something that has nothing to do with friendship and all this other
right.
stuff. So and that's where I want to stress that the importance of this is by realizing, hey, he could be authentic. That transitioned into, you know, we meet up for breakfast, we meet up for a cup of coffee here or there or whatever, and we have moments where we might discuss something as simple as, you know, as the weather. And you know what vehicles we're driving, all the way down to something super spiritual and life changing, right. But there's no pressure in either direction. But what that transitioned into is, I called him one day, stressed out at work, had a very 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 rough night, and it was something weighing on my brain. You know, just you know, really struggling mentally with it. You know, and what it was doing was it was causing me to be very, very irritable, you know, and I know in normal life I'm a very grumpy person anyway, but this was more than the average bear, if
right.
that makes sense. And I remember I was just, you know, parents will know this. You get to like auditory overload where you cannot take any more of whatever sound your kid is making.
Right.
You know, and whatever they're doing, and you just. You hate it for them, but all the stress ends up on them.
Yeah.
You know, or the overflow of the stress. And I remember we were driving, and my son's in the back seat. He's playing with some toys, making all these noises, and I'm talking about I'm at level 10 already, and I'm about to explode. You know, and I didn't give him a warning. I didn't do anything, and he's sitting there playing with this. I don't even remember what toy it was. But he's in there, you know, making a racket after racket after racket. And if I was like, stop with the damn toy, and like straight up drop the dad voice
right.
and everything. And there was no, hey man, put the toy up, you know, or any of this other stuff. It was straight to, you know, this
that
authoritative,
snap. Yeah.
you know, snap. And that he immediately did what I told him to do. He was hurt a little bit, you know, and Shortly thereafter, he moved on to the next thing. But it was, for me, like I dwelled on it because I was like, he didn't deserve that.
Right.
You know, he's 6. He doesn't deserve me talking to him like that. I could have handled that differently. It's not his fault that I'm stressed out at work or from this whatever's going on. Like he had no idea, or else he may not have done that.
Right.
And so I remember I called Luke, and I'm sitting there telling him about what's going on, and he'd been apprised of the situation up to this point. And he told me one of the things that struck with me the most, and it was he said, rather than and this is where your friends might have the best advice for you that you're not even prepared, like you don't even come, because I was expecting him to be like, look man, you got to take a couple of days, you got to calm down, you got to do this and that, he didn't deserve that, you got to keep this in check, like you got to understand, you're in charge of this kid's life, you if you do this, if you yell at him wrong, he might, so you got to understand that, look, you're in an important spot. Like I was expecting something like that,
right.
For lack of a better term, an ass chewing, and Luke told me, he said, man, you've got to be patient with yourself. He said, in the same way, he said, you've got a healing process, like we talked about last episode with scars. He said, you've got to be patient with yourself because you're still going through stuff too. He said, your son, you'll be able to mend that with your son. It's not going to be the end of the world. He said, but you can't be so self-critical of yourself, you don't give yourself an opportunity to heal. And I'm sitting there, I was like, God, if that's not the best dad advice I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
And it was what I needed to hear at that time. And I never would have approached it from that standpoint.
Right.
And, a lot of my law enforcement friends would not have approached it from that standpoint. It would have been a whole different approach, and so it's one of the things where, we all bump shoulders with people day in and day out. And I get, hey, not everybody can be a confidant. But you got to go and, if I want to go play a video game, I'm going to go find that video game. If I want a vehicle, I'm going to take the time. I'm going to go hop online. Who's got the deal? Who's got, why is this model better than the next one or whatever?
Right.
I'm going to do research and I'm going to go find it. When it got, time for me, when I was looking for a girlfriend, I went and I found one. Like it's not uncommon for guys to know, hey, I need this. Let me go find it. And we take this approach that I don't have friends, man. I don't know what to do. No, you've got to go find it. Like this is the part where I will say, hey, time to get off your ass and go find it.
Right.
And that's got to be kind of the approach is you have to invest yourself in it. And if you don't, down the road, and that's what we're going to touch on the next episode is down the road, you're probably going to be in one of these dark spots. It's not it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Because life is going to beat you up.
I'll say this: when I went into the military, I was not necessarily shy, but I've never been a shy person. I talk really easy to people. That's never been an issue, but letting people in to, I guess for lack of, I don't know why I keep saying for lack of better terms. That just seems to be my thing tonight. Letting people into that vulnerable side of my inner life. And I started to notice one of the easiest ways for me to reach out to people I wouldn't normally reach out to was just saying hi in random places. Like when you're out at the mall or, I was stationed in San Diego and I'd be down at the beach or whatever. I looked out for those people that were different, for no other term to use. But, I had a 30-minute conversation with a guy one time whose dreadlocks went down to his ankles. And it was like, I just saw his hair and was like, bro, that took you how long to grow? He's like, 17 years. And I was like, holy shit. 30-minute conversation with this dude. Right. And we went from everything from hair to life to parenthood. I didn't have kids at the time, but how he was like, every time that he would struggle, he would say, I just cut my hair off. And then his brain would say, well, that'd be stupid. Why cut the hair off? You've got commitment to this. And that was how he brought his own patience and his calmness back to deal with his child because he's like, I'm so angry, I'll just shave my head. But
Right.
that was his center. That was what calmed him. I know that's weird, and I know that not sure where that's going, but it's finding a way to center yourself back down. And if you can't do it yourself, you got to find those people that you can do
Right.
it with.
Well, I think you start surrounding yourself with people that it starts building your confidence, and you could be a
Right.
very confident person prior to.
Yeah.
But some of us who aren't, and that's typically what leads us down a road of isolation, is when you start when you start surrounding yourself with somebody and making it a point, it develops confidence in you.
Yeah.
Now you may not go tackle the world and become some public leader, but you get out of the house and you get that circle
Right.
of friends and you start living life on a more confident level.
Yeah. Even if it's something as simple as just, hey,
Right.
when you going into work, hey man, how's it going? And you ain't got to stop and talk.
Right.
But if they're like, hey, what's up with you? Have a conversation. Maybe you're going to find something that you can bond with that person. What was making me laugh earlier was when you were talking about you were yelling at your son in that moment. You kind of snapped a little bit. And it reminded me of the time I was on my way to drop him off at school. And we were on the phone having a serious conversation. And I was trying to focus on that, and my son was sitting next to me, and he would not stop. And I must have asked that kid at least 3 times to just chill out and let me finish the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I snapped at him. And your words that came over the phone weren't directed at me. It was, hey, man, I'm going to warn you right now. You're going to want to stop doing what you're doing before your dad loses it on you. Like, he's at the end.
Right.
You need to stop. And he did. Like, he listened to you. And that was something else I was going to bring up, is sometimes it may not be how that person interacts with me, but how they interact with my kids as well.
Right.
Like you and Coop are Uncle Mike and Uncle Coop to my kids. And that was on their own doing. They chose you guys to be men in their lives. That's to me, that says something about your character that my children who don't know, for lack of better terms, there I go again. They aren't the greatest judges of character, but they pick 2 guys that I'm saying, I trust with my life,
right.
and they choose you. And it makes me laugh because they don't call your wife, Aunt Brittany. They call her
Right.
Miss Brittany, which I still think is hilarious. But you're going to find yourself at some point in life where you need to have a rope out. And if you don't have the rope to get you out of the quicksand or the darkness or whatever you want to call it, being a friend, being a family member, this cold that's going around is killing me, or even a pet, because I know we talked about pets even. If you don't have something to help you get out of it, you're going to sit there and drown in it, and we've been to enough calls where somebody is contemplating making that end-all be-all action. Most of them just needed somebody to listen for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It was, life built up to the point, I'm trying not to cough, life built them up to the point that they couldn't pick the weight up anymore. There was nothing they could do to get the weight of the world off of their chest. So if you do a little preventative maintenance and get you somebody who's going to reach out to you when they notice you haven't reached out to them. Look at the guy who had no friends and family but ordered pizza every day from the same Domino's. He got lunch at 12:05 every day. And after 2 weeks of not ordering pizza, Domino's came to the house and was like, "Hey, fam, you ain't been ordering your pizza. Oh, shit, you're dead." He wasn't dead. He was, like, down in the living room. He had fallen or something and he couldn't get up. But it's just a little bit that you got to do before you get into that position where you think that's the only answer.
Right.
Because it's not. It's not the right answer. It doesn't serve a purpose other than to end your pain. But nobody ever considers, and I know we've talked about this too, nobody considers what that pain causes for everybody left. to clean up that mess or to deal with that explosion of emotions,
Right.
or, and then it's not just the people in your life that are affected when you do it. It's the police officers that have to get out there. It's the ambulance people that have to come out there. It's, the poor person that has to come to your house and clean up after it, So we all know it's a selfish action, but you could avoid all of that by just taking a small baby step and saying hi to people and starting conversations. And you're going to bat 1,000. I mean, some people aren't going to say anything back to you. Some people are going to tell you to go F yourself. But if those are the responses you're getting, you write you a little tally and be like, well, that's not friend material.
So to dial it back a little bit on the severity level, sometimes because not everybody's going to go down that road.
Right.
And we're going to address that in an upcoming episode pretty soon. But for today, the importance of having friends where you can call and vent. Like I do it with you regarding my spouse.
Yeah.
Like she takes and she drives me up an absolute wall. And anybody who's ever been married, whether it's been for 10 years or 10 days, she's already got on your last nerve. Let's be real.
That honeymoon phase did not last the honeymoon.
I've said this to several. I said this to a lot of women, and not the first one has ever disagreed with this statement. And I didn't come up with it. I had an older guy tell this to me, and he told me right before I was getting married, he's like, look, he said, you got to understand, every woman is crazy. You just have to decide how much crazy you want to deal with.
Right.
And not the first woman. And internet, I'm sure you're not going to let me down here. Not the first woman that's ever heard me say that statement goes, we're not crazy.
Nope. Not
the first one. Every one of them are like, no, we get it. Yeah, we get it. And so it's one of the things where, you take and they drive. She does. My wife does things that absolutely annoys the shit out of me. Like, she could take a project. We've done several home renovation projects because we've had several homes that need to be renovated, and a simple project she would come up with. No, I don't want to do it like that. And she'll add some weird aspect
bizarre,
to it,
like fold out kitchen,
I'm like, why
table,
can't we
pantry.
just do things simple? Why can't we just do this? And it's always been, hey man, listen to what this dumb woman has got me doing now.
Right.
And it's so for a lot of guys, you're on your way home from work, and you know that, hey, you're gonna walk in the house and you're gonna have that argument. Sometimes getting a little bit of a conversation before stepping into the war zone,
right,
comes in handy. Where it's like, hey man, just get through the beating. You can survive it. And,
right.
And sometimes it's that. Sometimes, hey man, she's coming from a good spot. You gotta understand her. Her stand.
Yep.
And having that friend makes all the difference in the world in how you approach that, because as guys, we like to take the simple way out. Like we like things being easy.
Yeah.
Like not putting your business out there. If you can DoorDash food, you're DoorDashing.
110%. I'm lazy as shit. I'm not trying to
cook. It's one of the things where we all have our things that we enjoy doing, but everything else, like if we can take a lazy way out, we're going to do it. If we're going to, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Fact.
And so it's
except
one of the
in your
things
marriage. Except in your marriage.
Yes. I'll never do that to you.
Caveat.
But if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and so we take that aspect into our marriage. And I'm not talking about infidelity, but sometimes it's not worth the fight in our mind.
Yeah.
Where we're like, hey, if this is how it's going to be, I want to eliminate the problem. And so how many divorces could be saved?
Yeah.
If you have that friend that says, hey man, understand how she's looking at it. You got this going on, and you're kind of a bit of a jerk.
Right.
Or some of it is, hey, look, she's being that way, but this is what you've got.
Right.
And so they bring another aspect to it.
Well, sometimes you just need somebody to pull the steam out of it before you walk in there heavy and hot to fight back, to just go, you know what? It might be easier just to let it go and steer it and try to move on without having the
right
all out knuckles and throw down fight. So I'm really fighting this cough. It's killing me.
Right. So no, I mean, I think it serves a very very big purpose, and it's you've got to get, and we're not going to beat this horse too much longer.
Right.
You've got to get out of your comfort zone, and you've got to get out there and start having conversations for the guys who don't have those friends. Now, for the guys that do have, you do have a circle of people around you that you call quite often. Start looking at see what they meant, but also or what they mean to you, but also at the same time, stop being selfish and start
Return
reaching
the
out to
favor.
them.
Yeah.
Right? Just I'm telling you right now, if you reach out to your friend who you've never done this to before, call, or if you're more comfortable doing it through text message, do it through text message. Hey man, how's it going? And when they're like, oh, it's good. No, how's it really going? Or
Right.
or hey, what do you got going on? Or I've got a couple guys that I've sent messages to that caught them off guard, where I was like, hey man, what can I pray for you for about this week? And that threw them. Wait, what? And it changes things up. So try to be more intimate with your friends and get out of just, oh, we'll link up and play video games, or we'll link up and throw something on the grill and do a barbecue or whatever. But go deeper than that, because you may be that person that prevents getting that phone call later on, and that's what we're going to talk about. A little bit in this next episode. So stand by for a couple days from now when it comes out. But for now, I think unless you got something else, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah.
So he's been battling a cough, so I'll handle it from here. Guys, we want to thank you, and girls, we want to thank y'all for listening to this episode. We want to thank y'all for your support so far with Coffee and the Bull. This has been a great journey for us. It's probably consumed way more of our life than what we anticipated it doing.
Yeah.
If you've got something you'd like to talk about, something you have questions about, something you don't want to put on Facebook or TikTok, or we actually just launched Instagram today. So if there's something you want to talk about that you don't want necessarily everybody to be able to see, hey, this is a question you have, shoot us an email. It's going to be coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com. We will respond to you. If it's something we can put on the air, we'll do that. If it's not something you want, we'll handle it privately, and we'll keep your business your business. So for now, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, share, follow, all those podcast buttons, and help us out there with that. But unless you got something else.
Yeah. Toodaloo! Beat you to it.